أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الغوي الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله وسلم عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله وسلم عليك يا سيدي ومولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله فاز من اعتصم بحبلكم وأمن من لجأ إلى حسنكم يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون إنما يتذكر أولو الألباب آمنا به صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Elders, respected scholars, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this particular area of the verse of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala poses a rhetorical question. The question is, are those who know and those who do not know equal in the eyes of the people in the community, in the eyes of the people in society? What is conventionally understood by the people in society, those who know and those who do not know, are they considered to be equal? And the answer is, of course, no. And when you refer to the ulama, for example, they give a beautiful example. They say, imagine a man who is walking in a forest, in a dark area. Of course, in the forests, we don't have artificial lights. In the darkness of the night, for example, they have no equipment, no instruments, no devices that can give them light. But when they walk through the forest, they are prone to many different types of danger. They can fall, for example. They can be attacked by certain animals. They can, for example, bang into things. It's very difficult for them to pass from the forest, from one side of the forest to the other, without any equipment to help them. And compare that to a person who has to pass through a forest from one side to the other, but he has some form of device in his hand that emits light. For example, he has his phone, or he has a lamp or a torch or whatever it is that guides him through the forest. Likewise, this is the similarity of this is the similarity of the person who does not know in comparison to the ones who know. And of course, when you refer to the riwayat of the Ahl al-Bayt and of course the ayats of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distinguishes the ulama in the community. For example, He says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء, that from amongst His ibad, from amongst His slaves, the ulama are those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, according to the tafsir, according to the mufassirin, the tafsir of this verse implies that those who have reached the higher stages of taqwa are those who have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their heart. And to have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is of a high position. Sometimes people say that we should love Allah and Allah loves us, and we should interact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that He interacts with us lovingly, the way a mother would interact with her child. Allah is Ghafurur Rahim, and so on and so forth. But we need to understand that Allah is Sari al-Iqab, for example, Sari al-Hisab, Shadid al-Iqab. These are also the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala he used to approach his salah, they say when it was time for adhan, he would shake out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is Amir al-Mu'mineen we're talking about. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who used to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in our lives, it is important for us to maintain that balance. That yes, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafurur Rahim, He is also Shadid al-Iqab and Sari al-Hisab. When it comes to the idea of comparing a person who knows and a person who doesn't know, the comparison is quite wadih, it's quite clear in the minds of the people. Innately, people understand that there is a massive difference between the one who knows and the one who does not know. Now the question is raised. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, when you refer to the riwayat of the Ahl al-Bayt, we have many narrations. You find, for example, when you refer to the books of Shahid al-Thani, known as Munyat al-Murid, the entire book is about how a person should seek knowledge, for example, and the adab and the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. He talks about the fadila of seeking knowledge. Of course, some of them from amongst these riwayats, famous riwayats we have, where Rasulullah says, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. That the moment we come into dunya, we should take on that responsibility of seeking knowledge. Or for example, until the day we leave this world. In another narration, he says, seek knowledge even if that means traveling to China. So you find even within the riwayats of the Ahlul Bayt, the advocation of seeking knowledge is there. But then the question is raised, which type of knowledge should I seek? If I am an optom, for example, or I am an engineer, or I am a medic, for example. Yes, I've spent 10 years in the university seeking and specializing in a particular science, and I have gained knowledge in this particular science, and I've become an alim. Does that manifest this ulama that is mentioned in the verse? When Allah says that the ulama are those who fear me, or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ darajat, that those who have knowledge, those who have been given knowledge, Allah has raised them. Yes, Allah has raised their position in society. Which knowledge does this refer to? Does this refer to the knowledge that we gain in the universities? Or no, it's a different type of knowledge. The ulama explained that no, it's not the knowledge that we gain for dunya. There is a difference between gaining knowledge for dunya and gaining knowledge for akhirah. Gaining knowledge of dunya, I'm not demeaning it. It is necessary. It is absolutely necessary for the survival of a civilization, for the progression of society and the advancements of society. We need to learn about dunya. We need optoms and we need dentists. And we need, for example, engineers. This is how society progresses. A person cannot take on the responsibility to be a plumber and an electrician and a teacher and an engineer and an optom, for example. So this distribution, this taklif, this responsibility is distributed by the people in society. That if a particular group of people in society were to specialize in one field and another group were to specialize in a different field, and so on and so forth, we can come together, we can coexist, work together and build a strong society. So dunya, the knowledge with regards to dunya is absolutely necessary. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But the issue is that when we leave this world, everything that we have gained knowledge with regards to dunya leaves us with us. It doesn't enter us in our graves. It doesn't enter with us in our graves. The moment we go into the qabr, if I'm a dentist, my knowledge of dentistry leaves me behind. It leaves me. Yes, it doesn't affect me in my grave. Yes, there is a different side to it. If I, for example, become a dentist and I'm at the service of the mu'mineen, and I, for example, help the mu'mineen of my community, or I travel in less developed countries and I help the mu'mineen in those countries, for example, the poor in those countries, and I use my skill to help those in need, this is a different discussion altogether. That in itself will enter my grave. This is amalun salih. It will enter my grave, but the knowledge itself will not enter my grave. So the ulama came forward and said that there is a specific type of knowledge that will enter our graves, and that is the knowledge that we gain surrounding the religion of Islam. And that specifically means gaining knowledge when it comes to our theology, and gaining knowledge when it comes to our ahkam, our fiqh, the laws that we have within our hands. When a person engages in understanding theology, interacts with the scholars in understanding his theology, what he believes in and why he believes in what he believes in, it enhances one's knowledge, it enhances one's actions, it enhances one's interaction with dunya. In the sense that if I was to sit down, and this is a responsibility for us as a community, we need to establish this within our centers, to have lessons surrounding aqaid. That when I sit down and I study tawheed, and I ask myself, why do I believe in Allah? And how do I prove that Allah is one? Why do I believe that He is Al-Alim and Al-Hakim? Why do I believe that He is Malik? Why do I believe that He is Jabbar? How do I prove His existence? All of that has an effect in my life. When I sit down and I begin to discuss theology, when I study theology, I can then apply everything that I have learnt in my life. That when I come to the conclusion that Allah has created me, for example, that Allah has created me and He has dominance in my life and He controls every aspect of my life, not only that, reward comes from Him, punishment comes from Him, and not only that, that He is all-seeing, that He observes my actions. Even behind closed doors, He observes my actions. I can say to myself, all of this knowledge has an impact in my life. I can look after myself, I can look after my spirituality even behind closed doors, even when I'm in private. Yes, not only in public, but even in my private life. This knowledge governs my actions. And when it governs my actions, it makes me a better human being. It makes me a more disciplined human being. Likewise, for example, when I begin to study my ahkam or the ahkam of the religion of Islam, I don't need to study it at a very deep level. I just need to study that ahkam which are necessary in my daily life. I turn around and I say, by the way, our ahkam, when we follow the ahkam, it is built on our aqaid. Yes? When I believe that Allah is all-knowing and all-wise, I say to myself, the reason why Allah has established the Sharia is because He knows what is best for us. He is all-knowing. He is all-wise. The reason why He has made something wajib is because there is maslaha in it for me. There is a reason behind it. And the reason is that there is a benefit for me. When I pray 5 times a day in 3 time periods during the day, it's because there is a particular benefit in it for me. Or for example, when Allah has made zina haram, or when Allah has made stealing haram or lying haram, there's a reason for that. And that is because it is devastating. The effects of it is devastating in my life and in the lives of those around me. So when I believe, when I adhere to the wajibat and when I refrain from the muharramat, those things which are haram, it stems from my knowledge that Allah is all-wise and all-knowing, and because He is all-wise and He is all-knowing, He knows what is best for me. So when I establish Tawheed in my life, when I establish or understand the concept of Nabuwah, when I understand the concept of the Wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, it has an effect in my life. It practically changes my life. It's not only me knowing about something, but it's also establishing that what I know in my actions as well. And of course, you find that within the Holy Quran, within the riwayat of the Ahl al-Bayt, and within the advices of the scholars, it is important to always establish a connection with the scholars. Yes, it is important that we establish a connection with those who know. It's interesting. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those who know if you do not know. It's a very beautiful verse, because when you look at certain aspects of successes in dunya, yes, certain aspects and certain dimensions of success in dunya can be measured very easily. If a person is rich, if you look at, for example, the billionaires of our time, their wealth can be measured. We can say and pinpoint that this person, that this fulan is the richest man in the world. We can say this fulan is the fastest runner in the world. This fulan is the fastest swimmer in the world. Yes, these are all different types of perfection. We can say this person, for example, is the greatest salesman in the world. This can be measured, but when it comes to knowledge, knowledge cannot be measured, because there is always someone who has more knowledge than us. Except isolate the Imam of our time, we can say with ease that the Imam of our time has all the knowledge. But when it comes to the people of our societies, we cannot pinpoint and isolate someone by saying that this fulan or this fulan or this fulan is the most knowledgeable person in the world. The idea is that there is always someone out there who has more knowledge than us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Always establish a connection with the ulama, because they may have knowledge that you may require in your life. And of course, one of the adab, one of the etiquettes of establishing a connection with the ulama is to ask them questions. The religion of Islam encourages us to ask questions. It advocates us to ask questions. Yes, Islam has never come forward and said, do not ask questions, believe in what you believe in without questioning. On the contrary, Islam has convinced us and Islam has encouraged us to ask questions. But there is adab in asking questions. There is etiquette in asking questions. Sometimes you'll find people may even ask the silliest of questions. Does that mean that when we go to the alim, for example, it is a right upon us to ask the silliest of questions? By the way, this discussion comes within the riwayat of the Ahl al-Bayt. Yes, you'll find, for example, when people go meet the maraja today, in this day and age, when they go meet the fuqaha, the people who have specialized in fiqh, some of the questions that I have come across that people have asked is really laughable. And it makes you think, why waste your time? Why waste the questions asking these silly questions? For example, they say a man approached one of the marj of our time, Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim, may Allah lengthen his life. And this man came from one area of the world. When he sat before the marja, he asked this question. He said, Sayyidina, What was the mahar of Adam when he married his wife Eve? What was the mahar of Adam? As in, sometimes you ask the question, you ask yourself, what benefit does this question, what benefit does this answer have in one's life? The adab of asking questions is, and this is something that has worked in my life, it's something that can also work in your life. When you have a question that needs to be asked, for example, first and foremost, ask yourself this question in your mind. Before asking the question to the alim, ask this one question in your mind. That if you were to know the answer, would that answer have an impact in your life? If you were to not know the answer, would that not knowing the answer have an impact in your life? If the answer is yes, then do what you want. If the answer is no, then do what you want. That's on you. That's your prerogative. It's your choice. Because you find that within the riwayats, the Imams have explained that there are certain types of knowledge in this world. That if you were to know the answer to these knowledge, it would not increase your ilm. It does not increase the value of your ilm. And if you were to not know this knowledge, or if if you did not have knowledge of this particular type of knowledge, it would not increase your jahalat. So if you were to know it, you would not become someone who has ilm. And if you were to not know it, you would not be considered someone who has jahalat. As in, there are certain types of knowledge that has no benefit whatsoever. And we need to bear that in mind. So you find, for example, the three classifications of knowledge is that there is knowledge that benefits us in dunya, and there is knowledge that benefits us in dunya and akhirah, and then there is knowledge that does not benefit us, not in dunya and nor in akhirah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They say one day Shaykh Ansari, when he was a child, he made a decision to go towards Najaf al-Ashraf. He made the decision to go towards gaining knowledge from the center of knowledge, Najaf. So he needed permission from his father and his mother to migrate towards Najaf and to study in the Hawza. So he came towards his father. His father gave him, his father responded positively. He said, "My son, this is a beautiful thing that you have encouraged yourself to go towards. If you want to become an alim, that support has come from me. Go towards Najaf and become an alim and study within the Hawza." But his mother, on the other hand, she used to always say no to him. She refused and denied him the permission to go towards Najaf. Every day he would come, he would beg his mother, "Mother, give me the permission to go towards Najaf. Mother, give me the permission, give me the permission." The answer would always come negatively. No, no, no. The love between the mother and the child, she could not stand to leave him and to allow him to migrate towards Najaf. They used to live in the city of Shushtar in those times, in Iran. So they say that every day he would come, he would try and convince his father, speak to mom, tell her, convince her, allow her to give me the permission to go. And of course, this is something within our fiqh as well, yes, that if the father was to give us permission and the mother doesn't give us permission, who do we obey? The priority of obedience goes to whom? It always goes to the mother. The mother has a higher right over the father when it comes to the obedience of the child. So he would always stay behind, he would not migrate because his mother always used to say no. Until days go by, weeks go by, until one day he approaches his mother, he says, "How about we do istikhara? Allow us to do istikhara. If the istikhara comes out to be good, then allow me to go. If the istikhara comes out to be bad, then I will change my motivation in life. I'll choose another field." His mother agrees. His mother says, "Let's do an istikhara." He does the istikhara, he opens the Quran, and the verse comes out. Which verse? وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَى. When Musa's mother gave birth to Nabi Musa alayhi salam, what happened? She was fearful of his life, wasn't she? She breastfed him. The ayah of the Holy Quran says she breastfed him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells her, breastfeed him, then place him in a cradle and let that cradle go down the stream, because your son will come back to you. Yes, your son will definitely come back to you. When she read this verse, she was satisfied and she said to him, "My son, go towards Najaf. Go towards Najaf and become a scholar within the fields of the religion of Islam." And Shaykh Al-Ansari became Shaykh Al-A'zam Al-Ansari. He became a pivotal figure within our madhab, that no person can become a mujtahid without even studying his works. He became a pivot within the Hawza system, or the system of the Hawza, to the extent that he migrated from Shushtar. He went to Kashan, from Kashan he went to Isfahan, from Isfahan he went to Najaf, Najaf to Karbala, and then he came back to Najaf and he's buried in the haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. So you find that there are certain figures in this world they encouraged themselves, they motivated themselves to go learn the knowledge that is beneficial in dunya and in akhirah. Tonight is the night of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. They say there is one narration the Imam alayhi salam narrates. It's the narration that he shares with Kumail ibn Ziyad al-Nakhai. They say one day Kumail ibn Ziyad, he narrates this. He says one day Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam took me by my hands and he took me towards He took me towards the Sahara, towards the deserts of Kufa, to the outskirts of Kufa. He said when we reached the outskirts of Kufa, we sat down and the Imam began speaking with me. The Imam alayhi salam, it's as if he opened his heart towards Kumail and he said to him, Ya Kumail, understand that the hearts, the minds of the human being, they are like containers, and the best of the minds are those that retain information. He says, O Kumail, understand that there are three types of people in this world. Listen to the words of the Imam. There are three types of people in this world. The first is the teachers of knowledge. They have taken it upon themselves, the responsibility to go around and teach people knowledge, and they constantly teach others. The second type are those who learn knowledge. They are the students of knowledge. They have taken upon themselves to study Islam. But then the third, they are the riffraff of society. They are neither the teachers nor the students of knowledge. And these are the people who have wasted their time in dunya. Yes, and then he carries on. He says, Ya Kumail, understand that knowledge has fadila over wealth. That knowledge is far greater than wealth. He says knowledge is far greater than wealth because knowledge is a protection. The one who has knowledge, the alim, the one who has knowledge, his knowledge protects him. Whereas the one who is rich and he's full of mal, he possesses mal, he needs to protect his wealth. Knowledge protects the one who has it, but the one who has wealth, he needs to protect his wealth. He says, oh man, he says, oh Kumail, understand that knowledge... Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says, O Kumail, understand that knowledge is greater than mal, because mal, when you spend, it diminishes, it lessens. But when you share your knowledge, it never lessens, it increases. He says, O Kumail, in other narrations, the Imam Ali salam explains this even better. He says, oh, understand that knowledge is far superior than mal, because knowledge is the inheritance of the Anbiya, whereas mal is the inheritance of the Fir'aun. He says knowledge is what? Greater than mal. The reason is because in a community, people are in need of an alim, but people are not in need of the rich. Yes, in a community, any community, however small the community is, the community is always in need of an alim, but the community may not be in need of the rich. You look at any civilization in the world today, from the history, from the books of history, from the time of Adam alayhi salam, civilizations have been built by the ulama. They have not been built by the rich. The ulama are the people who have built civilizations, and they have built communities and societies in the world. And then he goes on to say, O Kumail, understand. He says, O Kumail, understand that you need to have an affinity with the ulama. Because when you really establish a relationship with the ulama will help you engrave your knowledge. They will help you establish your knowledge to the extent that you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs to be worshipped, but the greater knowledge we have surrounding Him and His reality, the greater effect that ibadah has in our lives. He says, establish a relationship with the ulama. Then he says, O Kumail, understand. He says, O Kumail, those who have hoarded their wealth in dunya, they have left dunya. They came and they died. When they died, they were forgotten. Their reputations were forgotten. As in, how many rich people have we had since the time of Nabi Adam alayhi salam? And how many of them can we remember? Who were the billionaires, for example, in the previous century? Do we know? Because when they come, they hoard their wealth in dunya and they leave dunya, and their reputation is forgotten. Their names are even forgotten in the books of history. He says, as for the ulama, when they come and they gain knowledge, when they leave, yes, their bodies have disappeared, but their knowledge and their wisdom remains in the hearts of the people. Today, even today in the 21st century, we sit on the member of Rasulullah and we call out the names of Sheikh al-Tusi. We call out the names of Sheikh al-Saduq. We call out the names of Sheikh al-Mufid. We remember these personalities, Sheikh al-Kulaini. Yes? We remember all of these personalities because they were the ulama, and it is through the barakah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that their names have remained with us today. And I truly believe this, that it is through the barakat of Allah, through the blessings and the mercy of Allah, that their names are remembered even today. Otherwise they too would have been forgotten in the pages of history. He then begins to explain that knowledge has greater fadila, has a greater excellence in comparison to the mal and wealth. Now when you come towards this particular hadith and you examine it closely, it's surprisingly interesting. What's interesting? The Imam alayhi salam, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when you read the books of history, the historians asked a very intriguing question, a very thought-provoking question. They said, why did the Imam, when he became the Caliph, why did he move his Khilafah from Medina towards Kufa? Why? Because remember, when Rasulullah migrated from Mecca to Medina, he established his authority in Medina. After him, Abu Bakr remained in Medina. His authority was also in Medina. After him, Umar, when he established his authority in Medina, he did not move. Uthman likewise, he did not move. But when Imam became the leader of the Muslims, when he became the Caliph, when the Khilafat came into his hands, the first things, or one of the first things he did was he migrated from Medina to Kufa. So the question was why? Why did the Imam move? Of course, there are many reasons. From amongst the reasons is that Kufa was known to have a historical significance, spiritual significance. All of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one way or another interacted with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Kufa, Masjid al-Kufa. For those of you who've been to Masjid al-Kufa, you would know the different maqamats of different prophets. So the history is there. But one of the core reasons why the Imam moved was because the people of Kufa, the people of Medina were problematic for him. When Imam became the Caliph, his sole intention and reason was, his sole intention and primary motive was to reintroduce the Sunnah of Rasulullah. To try and remove the Sunnah of the Khulafa and to bring back the original Sunnah, the Sunnah of Rasulullah. But the people did not allow him to do so. The people were not able to change in this particular area. A primary example is the example of Taraweeh. We've heard this riwayah many times before, that when they began reciting Taraweeh Salah in the Masjid al-Nabi, he sends Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he says to him, his son, he says, go towards the Masjid and tell them to stop praying because this is not part of the Sharia of the religion of Islam. When Imam Hassan went towards the people and said towards the people that this is not part of the Sharia, how did they respond? They turned to him and they said to him, Wa Umara, do you expect us to abandon the Sunnah of Umar? When Imam Hassan, he came back, he related what the people had said to him to his father. He said, this is how they responded to me. What does Imam Ali alayhi salam respond? The Imam doesn't forcefully make them change. The Imam says, let them be. Because they have been habituated in following the Sunnah of the Khulafa. So therefore, Imam made the decision to move towards Kufa. When he moved towards Kufa, the effects of the Sunnah of the Khulafa in Kufa was much less than what was there in Medina. And it was easy for him to work with the community in Kufa. It was much easier for him to do tarbiyah of the people in Kufa. He was able to reintroduce the Sunnah of Rasulullah in Kufa. To the extent that after his 5-year term, what happens? The people of Kufa were known to be the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They were known to be the Shia of Imam Ali alayhi salam. To the extent that when Muawiyah takes power, when Muawiyah becomes the Caliph, what is his first mission? Was to destroy Kufa from the roots. Yes, was to exile those who loved Ali ibn Abi Talib. Was to, for example, reprimand those who followed Ali ibn Abi Talib, put sanctions, economic sanctions on those who loved the Imam alayhi salam. The love for the Imam was his primary attack. But you find that after the 5-year term, the Imam alayhi salam managed to change Kufa and make him his followers. The Imam alayhi salam, when he took government of Kufa, when he became the Caliph of the Muslims, he brought about many changes. He re-established justice within the community. Social justice he reintroduced, economical justice he reintroduced, military justice, political justice, every form of justice in all dimensions came back to the extent that even his enemies enjoyed his tenure, enjoyed his term, enjoyed his ruling. They say one day a woman approaches Muawiyah, enters the court of Muawiyah. The woman by the name of Sauda. When she enters the courthouse of Muawiyah, Muawiyah looks at her and says to her, "Who are you and what do you need from me?" She says, "My name is Sauda." She had a reputation. What was her reputation? She was known that during the Battle of Siffin, when Muawiyah fought against the Imam, she was one of the singers and one of the entertainers who used to try and entice the soldiers to fight against the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam. She would recite poetry, she would recite songs, and try and seduce the men to fight against the army of Imam alayhi salam. So she was an adamant supporter of Muawiyah. When she entered his courts, she said to him, "I am Sauda." He says, "Yes, I've heard of you. What can I do for you?" She says, "I have heard." She says, "I have come to complain towards you that your governor Bishr, he is oppressive to us and our people in our society." Muawiyah looks at her and says, "So, what do you want me to do?" Says, "What do I care if he's oppressive to you or no? If he oppresses you even more, I do not care. I could care less." When she's about to walk out from the courthouse, she says, "May Allah bless the one who has been buried, that when he was buried, justice was removed from society." When Muawiyah heard these words, he turned to her. He said, who are you referring to? Who are you referring to?" She replies, she says, "I'm referring to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam." And he asks, he says, "Why do you say such things about him?" She says, "Because one day when I was living under his rulership, I had a complaint against him. I would come towards him and I would sit, and when I would go to Dikkat al-Qada, where the office of the Imam was, I would knock on his door and he would open it and he would welcome me in his office. He would make me sit down and he would be very hospitable to me. And I would complain to him and I would say to him, 'Ya Ali, you have appointed a governor who is oppressive upon us. He is oppressing us and our people.'" They say, when I said this to the Imam alayhi salam, the Imam got up from his place, he raised his hands, he said, "Ya Allah, forgive me for appointing such a person. Ya Allah, forgive me for appointing a person who has spread oppression amongst his people, amongst my people." He then cried and cried and cried until he made the decision to fire this governor. "But when I come to you with the same complaint, you mock me and you abuse me with your words. May Allah bless the one who, when he was buried, justice was buried with him." They say this was the rulership of the Imam alayhi salam. The Imam then began working with the people of Kufa. One of the things that he accomplished in his 5-year term was that he revolutionized the prison system. This was one area that the Imam alayhi salam revolutionized, and of course there's much to talk about it, but the lack of time does not permit us. One of the things that the Imam alayhi salam was able to accomplish was that he established freedom of speech. The Imam alayhi salam, when he became the caliph, he established suggestion boxes around Kufa. To the extent that if people were shy, or people were, for example, did not find it necessary, or people who, for example, found it difficult to stand before the king, they would write letters to the king and they would put them in the suggestion boxes. The people would come, the officers and the people of the government would come, they would take these letters and they would take it to Dikkat al-Qada. The Imam would read these letters one by one. When the Imam would read these letters, he would throw away the letters that had no value, but then those complaints that were of value, the Imam would establish it in his society. Yes, freedom of speech was established by the Imam alayhi salam. When you put all of this together, there was one thing that the Imam was not able to do, and that was to able to change the people of Kufa the way they deserve to be changed, the way he intended them to change. And that's natural for the Imam, because you realize that out of his 5-year rule, he only had 5 years, by the way, 5 years before he was assassinated. And he was assassinated for his justice. He was assassinated because he was a just man, not because he was an oppressive person. But 5 years, what can a person do in 5 years? When a person becomes a president, at least the minimum years is what, 4 years, isn't it? If he serves 2 terms, then he can make a change in society. A fraction of a change he can establish within society. What can the Imam do in 5 years? Tarbiyah of our children takes what, 10 years, maybe 20 years. Imagine the tarbiyah of society. What can the Imam do in 5 years? Out of these 5 years, 3 years were in war. He was fighting in the Battle of Jamal, and then Naharwan, and then Siffin. So out of these 5 years, let's say he had 1.5, maybe 2 years maximum to try and create change within the society. The Imam was not able to create a change in society the way he intended to create change within the society. One of the other issues that the Imam faced was that the people of his society were not accustomed to change. The people did not reciprocate the way he intended them to reciprocate. The people could not sync with the Imam. That's why the historians, they say that the Imam used to live amongst the people of Kufa, but he used to live not amongst them as well. How can you live with the people of Kufa and not live with them? The lines of poetry comes into mind. They say that Amir al-Mu'mineen was like the gold in the sands. Yes, he was gold in the sands. He was surrounded by dirt and sand, but he was gold within them. This is how he used to live amongst the people of Kufa. He used to live in alienation. He used to live in isolation. He used to mingle with the people, but his mind, his basira, his mind was centuries ahead of them, and they were not in sync with him. They could not, for example, correspond actively with him. They could not behave positively with him. At times they were lazy. At times they could not understand his vision. And this was something that brought about stagnation in his progress. That's why they say that in Nahj al-Balagha, that's why the Imam alayhi salam in the streets of Kufa, he would go around saying, Ayn al-Ammar, where is Ammar? I need people like Ammar in my society. Aina Abu Haytham, for example, where is a person like Abu Haytham known as Malik? Where is he? I need people like him in society. Aina Dhu Shahadatain, where are these people? I need people like these in society where I can bring about change within society. The Imam lived in isolation. The Imam lived in alienation. He could not bring about the changes that he wanted within society. And that's why you find that here when he sits down with Kumail, the beautiful thing about this sermon is that he as a leader, he as a visionary, he sits down with Kumail, he says, oh Kumail, understand that the problem in my society is that people are infatuated over wealth. People are no longer interested in gaining knowledge. People want to run after wealth. People are running after dunya. And they should know that dunya has no benefit for them, not in dunya nor in akhirah. They should try and prioritize their lives in gaining knowledge, because knowledge is something that will avail them in dunya and that which will benefit them in akhirah. The Imam was a visionary. The Imam pinpointed the problems of his society and he gave solutions to that problem. He says that wealth has no importance completely, has no importance whatsoever in our lives. It is knowledge that has importance in our lives. And this is a solution, this is a problem that has existed in every community. Look at the knowledge of the Imam. He pinpoints, he talks about the one problem that has existed in every community from the time of Adam, that will exist until the time of the Day of Judgment. That people are infatuated about dunya. People are running behind dunya. They are not running behind knowledge. And this is what brings about stagnation in society. That you find that even in his last moments, when the Imam alayhi salam in his deathbed, he turns to his sons and his daughters. He turns to his sons and his daughters, and his final wasiyah is a wasiyah full of knowledge. Even in his final words, he is giving knowledge. He turns to his sons and his daughters and he says to them, "O my sons and daughters, I advise you to adhere towards taqwa. I advise you to adhere towards taqwa, for indeed taqwa is something that will be with you when you leave dunya." He says, "O my sons and daughters, I advise you, do not grieve over what you lose in dunya. Because when you lose something in dunya, make sure you do not cry and do not grieve over it." Why? Because it has no materialistic value. It has no value in itself, whether it be material or non-material. It has no value. And then he says, "O my sons and daughters, be truthful to your words and adhere towards truthfulness at all times." The Imam then continues. He says, "Allah by Allah, O my sons and daughters, adhere towards the Quran and the teachings of the Holy Quran." He says, "Allah by Allah, adhere to the rights of your neighbors. Make sure that you look after your neighbors." He says, "Allah by Allah, adhere to your salah. For indeed salah is considered to be a pillar of religion. He says, Allah, by Allah, look after zakat, make sure you adhere towards your zakat. Make sure you adhere towards your zakat. He says, Allah, by Allah, adhere towards siyam. فَإِنَّ الصَّوْمَ جُنَّةٌ مِّنَ النَّارِ. Make sure you adhere towards your fasting, especially in the month of Ramadan. For indeed, this is a barrier towards the fires of hell. He says, Allah, by Allah. The Imam continues, it's a lengthy sermon. His wasiyah is a beautiful wasiyah. When he finishes, the Imam alayhi salam then turns to his sons. They say that the Imam alayhi salam turns to Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. He summons Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. The Abu Fadl al-Abbas approaches the Imam alayhi salam. The Imam kisses his right hand and the Imam kisses his left hand. The Imam then says to him, Ya Abu Fadl al-Abbas, make sure that you do not fall short of your services to my son Abu Abdullah. Make sure that you serve him on the 10th of Muharram, on the day of Ashura. He then turns to Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. He then turns to Imam al-Husayn. He says, Ya Abu Abdullah, anta shaheedun fil ummah, fi hadhihi al-ummah. He says, you are indeed a martyr of this ummah. He then says to him, you will be slaughtered the way the sheep are slaughtered. When he says this to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, he then turns to Abu Muhammad al-Hasan. He then turns to his son Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. He then says to his son, he says, oh my son al-Hasan, you will be poisoned by your people. He says, you will be poisoned and you will be oppressed. And in the state of oppression, they will assassinate you, they will kill you. Oh my son, observe patience when they poison you. He then turns to Sayyidina Zainab alayhi salam and he shares a few words with Sayyidina Zainab alayhi salam. They say that when Amir al-Mu'mineen finishes his words, when he finishes his words with his sons and daughters, he faints. When he faints, they say Sayyidina Zainab alayhi salam falls on the head of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They say that Imam al-Hasan falls on the chest of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They say that when Imam al-Husayn falls on the feet of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and they would cry out, they would say, for which sin was our father killed? For which sin was our father killed? إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
ये जनाजा है अली का, ये जनाजा है अली का, ये जनाजा है अली का, शाह खैबर गिर का। ये